Here we want to determine if the polygons are congruent, but we want to do it by comparison this time. Instead of doing actual measurements here, I just want to kind of hold the things up side by side. And people do this all the time. Like if you were to cut two shapes out of a piece of paper and you wanted to make sure they were identical, you would kind of match them up. You would hold the two pieces up right next to each other and look for discrepancies. Look for things that are slightly different. Look for edges that are sticking out further on one than they're on the other. This is checking measurements by comparison. All right, this is determining if the things are the same by comparison. So if we look at this as an example, I've got two triangles here. If I want to do this by comparison, I actually have to physically move these things. And I have to make sure they're facing the same direction. So I might take this one and rotate it so that it's facing the same direction as the green one. And then I'm going to scoot it over here, and I'm just going to try to match it up and line it up. And so when we look at this, it looks a little off, so maybe we try to match up one of the edges, and if I match up that one edge, that messes up some of the other ones. And so as I look at this thing, determining if these are congruent, it's just a matter of seeing if they overlap completely, if they overlap perfectly. And I used two figures here that you can kind of see through. They're a little bit transparent. But people do this all the time with things that aren't transparent. The key is, once you hold them up, is you just have to kind of inspect them from every angle. And as you look at them from different perspectives, you might be able to see something like this, where one piece is sticking out further than the other piece, even though one side is lined up. And that's telling you that some of those sides are not exactly the same, and that maybe some of the angles are not exactly the same. So as I kind of compare these, I can tell that these are not the same based on the fact that they don't match up perfectly just by holding them up against each other, okay? So no, these ones are not congruent figures, okay? Doing the same kind of thing here, it says an artist constructs two frames that they believe are identical. How can you determine if they are correct? And once again, it's about a matter of matching these things up, holding them against each other, and looking for discrepancies, looking for things that are different. And so when I look at this, once again, they're not facing the same direction. So maybe I rotate this thing. And then after I rotate this, notice they're still not facing the right way. Like if I were to match these up, it looks like they're not congruent, but that's because I'm not holding them in the same way. I would have to flip one of these around kind of left and right. And so if I kind of flip this guy, so now that I flipped it this way, I can now compare these because they're facing exactly the same direction. And so again, I line them up and I make sure that nothing is sticking out on any end. And if these were actual physical frames that I was holding, I'd have to do it in both directions. So like here, I put this one on top of this one. I'd have to do it the other way too. So you got to inspect it from multiple angles. Because what happens if I were to kind of grab another shape here, let me grab one that's, clearly not the same at all. And if I were to kind of fill in that shape, let me color it in real quickly. If I were to fill that guy in and say, okay, let's compare these. If I hold one over the other, oh, it doesn't look like anything's sticking out. Well, yeah, that's because one is completely covering up the other, okay? So if one frame was just completely bigger in every way than the other, we wouldn't notice any discrepancies unless I looked at it from the other angle, unless I looked at it from a different side. So make sure you do the comparison both ways. Put one on top of the other, and then switch it around. And it looks like these match up completely. They match up perfectly. So by comparison, we can say that, yeah, these are congruent. Okay?